So as this was your second film with Imtiaz, so what is the Imtiaz Ali's style of working with a cinematographer? Does he explain the sequence and individual shots, or does he also share visual references from other films, paintings, or photographs?
I mean, both the films that I've worked on with him, I think the first conversation is only about the script and the story, and like say a little bit of the background of the characters and also characterization. We start there actually. We don't start with imagery or visual references and all. What also he does is he does not actually do any kind of visual reference. He doesn't show me any references. He this is what we want our images to look like in from some films or magazines. We start from zero actually, and then we don't talk about cinematography or image making till much later in the process. So he will talk more about why are we making the story and maybe the emotions of the scene. So those things are kind of more important for him than actually the image making per se at that stage. What later on also happens is he starts also explaining the soul of the film, like how does he want the film to feel to the audience, and I think that is much more nuanced way of approaching cinema. He also emphasizes that okay, let's not get carried away with coverage. Let's focus on characters. Let's focus on the emotion of the scene. So when you have a director who's very clear about their approach, then you can actually gear your thinking towards that kind of cinema.
There is a scene where Nasim Shah is lying on a bed in the military camp, and while trying to cross the border, and Sharwari appears with a strong sun halo behind her. So, what was the concept behind shooting that scene in this particular way? It's a really amazing idea to shoot in that sense.
So from the scripting stage only, there was this one scene where he falls, and as he falls, certain memories and all come back to him, and so we wanted to create this whole. Actually, can I start that again? Yeah. So in the film, there is a sequence where Nasiruddin Shah is on the bed, and as he wakes up and he sees someone from his past. We don't know this person yet, and this person obviously is very important to him, and he is imagining. So we wanted to distinctly demarcate the fact that he is imagining someone from his past. So we said that okay, let's try to create this sequence in a different way, but it's also based in reality. So we conceptualize like we conceptualized the sequence to start where it's very natural.
Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, we conceptualized the sequence to be very natural, and then within that naturalness, the environment changes, like with wind or light or something, and then he imagines this person to be there. We did not want to confuse the audience whether this is a person in reality or his imagination. So that had to be distinct. What also happened that day is that it was like like I think the start of monsoons. So the atmosphere itself was very gloomy. So we could actually build this kind of dreamy world. We had a little bit of haze in the air and all, but it was still not looking great. At the end we had this idea. Let's pop her with a highlight. And we tried it from the left and right, and it just wasn't looking spectacular. So we said that okay, what if we give it we give a strong source behind her, just to like create a halo, and that just worked. I think sometimes a lot of things come through accidents. You have like a lot of ideas before, and then they work great, but then you have to keep thinking on your feet, and so certain kind of accidents sometimes also help you.
So this particular scene was created with some kind of a HMI in the backside, or how did you do it?
I think it was a 5K. I think it was a strong 5K or a 12K, something like that.
So there is another sequence where Sharwari and Vedant Rana are seen together in a song sequence set inside a palace-like location.
Yeah.
So the same location also used with a soft glossy filter to represent the memories of the old kino. So how did you discover this location, and what made you suitable for portraying both moods in terms of the dreamy thing and also the part in a song?
So while we were doing this recce, Imtiaz took us to this place which was like a sheesh mahal. So it's a very protected archaeological site where even entry access is very difficult to get. It's like the paintings have been restored from one side, and it's very beautiful. Like even the mirrors have been like carefully restored and painstakingly cleaned. So we were saying that how can we get this into the film, because the paintings itself, the very few have been shown in the film. We shot a lot more. A lot of these paintings show a story of love, and also what happens is in this Sheesh Mahal, the kind of architecture, the kind of painting styles are a blend of different kinds of cultures within India itself. So anyway, the story is also about talking about like say undivided India, right? So how did people in undivided India, how did they perceive different parts of the country itself? They didn't look at them as north and south and all. It was all like one country. So so within the Sheesh Mahal itself, there were architectural styles of say the Mughal architecture, plus like say something from the southern parts of the country. So all these things blending in created like a very unique kind of a visual atmosphere around. So we chose this also. We were thinking, can we imagine them like maybe they've come here on a college visit, or maybe something this. Can we place them in this kind of a environment? Which yes, it does look organic, but also it is also like dreamlike, because I think something like this is very difficult now to create. So I think that was one thing, and then this whole imagination thing of him looking at her as a white bride, because for him he keeps saying that okay, if we can't get married together, let's convert to Christianity and then maybe we can marry. So he imagines her as a white bride a couple of times in the film. So her image coming in that white dress, it had to look a little something extra. So we said, okay, let's experiment. So we said, okay, if we shoot her in a plain way, so it'll just look like she's there. It'll not look part of his imagination and a heightened imagination. So we did some experimentations. We found this star filter. Obviously, it's a very old device. It's not like something new. We're not trying to.
But it works.
It absolutely works for that scene, because also it works because there are a lot of mirrors in the back. So what we did is obviously we lit her in the way we did. We also created a highlight behind her. So we imagined that when he is imagining her that way, maybe he sees her like with a halo, or maybe like a kind of an angelic kind of a figure. And we also punched some harder lights into the mirrors, which reflected back and created more stars. So that I think created a very unique kind of image for us.
The most important actor in the film, who is a veteran in himself, is Naseeruddin Shah, and he's shown lying on the bed several times under different situations. So how did you show through lighting to reflect the various situations, timing, and period?
So one of the most difficult parts of the film is actually because our character, one of the lead characters who's driving the story forward, is also in one position. So usually you would have people moving around different spaces, different kinds of variety of locations. So that itself like makes it easier for us to kind of get variety of framing, compositions, and all that. But in this situation, because he is bedridden, so we are stuck with certain kind of angles, certain kind of camera positions that we have to keep repeating. Within that, how do we create more interesting play? So we said, okay, let's change the lighting, because apart from yes, the story is moving forward, but also emotionally the story is moving forward. Like within the scene, also like you need to highlight an emotion of the character that he is going through. So it has to be a sort like, so for example, if there is a certain scene where he's feeling very agitated, so there are sometimes we've played with like a lot of cold light, for example, or if he's feeling very very like happy or relieved or something. So we try to create a little bit of warmth through sunlight coming in. So that codifying of lighting we keep doing. So the audience does not notice any of it. Like basically when they are watching the film, obviously they're only noticing the character. No one looks at lighting. No one cares about it. But subconsciously, I think it definitely has an effect on them. They perceive the scene a certain way differently if we change the lighting. It also changes with contrast. It also changes with like the way your highlights fall onto the character. So these subtle things we have to keep doing within scenes, across the film, that help us tell the story better visually.
Also, some of the sequences have an amazing combination of location, natural light, and time. For example, the scene where Sharwari and Vedant first ride a bicycle near the college. So, with a huge building beautifully lit by the morning sunlight, while the actors remain in soft diffuse light on the street. So, how did you plan and execute the lighting and timing for such sequences?
I actually do focus on working with available natural light a lot. What I do painstakingly through the recce is I take a lot of sun path images. and I also work with the AD team, with the director, to figure out a way that we can shoot through the day with prioritizing the sun in a certain position. And so far, especially where like I've worked with like very good directors, they understand why I'm doing this. It's not about like, oh, I'm trying to only do it for my show reel, or I'm doing it only for my selfish reasons. They understand that this is only for the film. It's only going to make the film better. It's only going to make the like the actors look better, and not better in a good way. It's like, how do we also get drama in, right? Character into the imagery. So what we do is, like, for example, when we do our blocking, so we make up a character sit and we understand, okay, this is the scene and this is roughly the coverage that we would like to go through. We take our sun path and then we imagine, okay, maybe like 6-8 months later, whenever we do come to shoot, where would the sun be? Accordingly, we plan our day. So we say, okay, if we want the sun to come from the right or the left, wherever, so we tell the AD team, okay, can you plan this scene around this time, because it would really help us get the best out of the scene without manipulating too much. So if we plan, I always feel like if we plan it with this in mind, the shooting time gets reduced, because suddenly you're using much lesser resources to manipulate the light. You're working with natural light. It firstly gives you a very natural feel. It looks very organic, but at the same time you're moving much faster, and you're like between takes also you're not wasting as much time. Between shots you're not wasting enough time. So I think it overall helps the process to get us a much better result.
Coming back to this cycle sequence, did you also use the artificial diffuse light like sky panel or something to get this little bit of the crispness in the image? Though it will be diffuse, but do you use the artificial light also in situations like that?
No, I actually don't. I prefer to use a lot of skimmers and stuff and really bounce only natural light. So sometimes when it's not possible, maybe a reflector or something, but we try to avoid using artificial light. It's not like I'm averse to it, but when especially shooting in these locations where it's very remote, to take a generator there is not easy. It's not easy to move around lights. Plus, the moment your unit size becomes bigger, you're also becoming like a elephant. Versus you need to be like an antelope, like you need to be very nimble, and then the more nimble you are, the faster you can move, and the better kind of shots you can get. The moment you start like becoming like this mammoth elephant, and you're like, okay, you build a big setup, you get really stuck into it. So yeah, I think like if the way we plan it, we say, okay, let's move light, let's work with the resources at hand. Let's prioritize sunlight. Let's figure out a way to shape sunlight rather than create it fully from zero. All that really help. And then obviously there are situations where it's not possible, then you have to do it. But those situations are like, say, maybe 1 in like say 10 or 20 times. It's not like every time you're trying to just create like your natural environment.
Also, there are so many brands today which are in terms of the expensive light, whether it's the green source or LED. So, do you have a specific preference for these soft big lights which are available?
So I kind of actually like to mix it up, to be very honest. I don't like to get stuck with one kind of a brand or one kind of a lighting source or one kind of a lighting style also, to be very honest. So if you've seen my earlier work also, I like to experiment a lot with the kind of approach to the cinema also, to my work. So sometimes I will like myself like keep a very restrained kind of a approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming to another similar situation, was there a real location or was it a specifically big set? I'm referring to the sequence with the steps surrounded by these red flowers and lush foliage where the romantic conversation takes place between Sharvari is wearing a maroon colored suit. Also although most of the scene appeared to be lit with a very soft diffuse light, if it was, and there are subtle patches of light falling on the actors' hair or part of their faces. These highlighted, which appears natural. What they added with the artificial soft lighting, or how did you go about that particular scene?
So as I was saying, I like to play with natural light a lot. So we did plan the scene.
It was not a set; it was a real location.
It was a real location, and the only thing that was added was a tree. But actually,
the tree was
added, and it was added mainly to create like kind of a shade for them.
So these flowers were also artificial then?
Yeah. So the production design team did a fabulous job, and the way they obviously drew the tree first and they showed it to us, and they were like, okay, is this good? And there is a certain quality, mythical quality to that tree as well. Like it does look, maybe it's the part of that space, maybe not, but it's also like a story that he's remembering, right? So maybe the tree could have been a different type, but now in his memory, this is the tree. And what happened was Imtiaz and the production designer, they 6 months prior to the shoot, they went with the horticulturist over there and they kind of planted seeds of different kinds of trees that were probably from that region around that time. And it took 6 months for that entire place, the ruins, to grow these shrubs and herbs and stuff. And so after the recce, when we went there, it was obviously all overgrown. And so we had to now choose where we would like to keep them and where we kind of reduce them, we trim them. So the landscaping was done in a way that it facilitated our shoot in the best possible way, I feel. So yeah.
So did you use some artificial light for that sequence? Because
No,
that was
no,
most important.
no. So in that scene there was no artificial light. It was only sunlight used, and we shaped sunlight.
And how that soft kind of patch of light falling over there, did you use some malmal on the top to
No.
get that kind of...
So what we did was we again planned what time of the day we would shoot it and stuff like that. And we figured out a way that we could cover the scene with the cover of the tree itself, so that the actors would not have direct sunlight, and even if the sunlight reaches them, it would be filtered through the trees. Now there was a couple of shots where we did run out of that cover. So what we did was we added a camo net. So camo net is like this giant kind of a net which also has like a lot of holes in it. So when you mix it with the dapple of the tree, it looks like seamless. So I think that blends it and makes it very unique, like very natural.
So for that sequence, there is another one in which he is wearing a yellow one, and
Yeah.
So all those were done at one go. Different
Over
costumes?
2-3 days, yeah.
2-3 days.
Yeah. So for example, like there we did like when we shot in the morning for that scene. Then within that we did a couple of other scenes like action sequences and other like say night sequences, all that. And the next morning again we started with the same step sequences but in a different costume. And then another day we did another thing. So we prioritize natural light that way. So instead of like saying, okay, we'll do the steps now and we'll do one day of only steps, but that would mean that you're working against the lighting. And then I would have to add a lot more skimmer and do lighting, which is actually counterproductive to be very honest. But if you can smartly schedule things, maybe it really helps us to work efficiently.
Uh, then in the scene where Sharvari, dressed in a light blue and white outfit, accidentally falls on the way down.
Yeah.
And they share a romantic conversation, and there are several beautiful composed close-up, over-the-shoulder shots to enhance the romantic mood of the sequence. Did you use any artificial light and diffusion or some special filter to achieve that softness and dreamy look?
No, to be very honest, nothing. Again, like bounced a lot of natural light. So we shot this during top sun. So we wanted that feeling of them to be in a very like a cozy shaded spot and hidden from the outside world. What we did was we used like a checkerboard kind of a reflector, and that actually helped us bounce the sunlight, but it had a little bit of warmth in it, like a golden warmth that helped enhance the skin as well. But we did not add any diffusion on the like on the camera or anything. It also helps that the skin tones are very good. Skin tone, skin texture is really good for them.
So when you say checkerboard kind of bounce reflector, it has a different blocks of
Yeah.
square, which
Yeah.
give you a little mixed.
Yeah. So this checkerboard that we used, it had like silver and golden squares, and it's like meshed like almost like a chessboard. So when that bounces off, it actually creates a little bit of a golden sheen on their face rather than just a very plain white. So in this part of the story, like this part, and like probably even when they are like going through the early phases of romance, that's what we kind of did.
So there are many night sequences in the film. So did you use the day for night technique for any of them? Or if so, what precaution did you take while shooting and in post production to make the effect look very convincing?
We did like. So when we did the pre-production, we realized that there are certain scenes in the film that required a lot of scale, but to show them on screen, we would have to light a lot. And the problem is not lighting. The problem is even if you light, then you can only light for a certain section of the set or a certain section of the location. and beyond that it goes into black, which I always found to be not convincing, because when we are in these remote parts of the country or wherever else, and it's rural, and it's dark, but actually our human eyes perceive things differently, right? Like, so even if it's dark, you can still see imagery, you can still see into the distance, you can see hills, you can see trees, because of the starlight, because of moonlight. So I feel like so when we were going through it, we considered how do we do it in a way that we can convincingly create this feeling of being in that time, but also you can see into the distance. So we did a lot of tests with Day for Night. I think we did about, like, say, 4 or 5 rounds of tests, and to understand it better and better. And only after we were very convinced that okay, we can pull it off in a very in a way that the audience doesn't realize that that they've done some kind of an effect here. That was very important, because suddenly if you throw them off, then the whole emotional, like, nature of the scene goes away. It just takes off from the continuity of emotion.
So let's say, for example, if there were 10 sequences which were night, how many of them would have been day for night?
I would
Outdoor,
say,
I'm talking.
yeah, outdoor. I think maybe like 7, 8, I guess, if I have to count. Like the key sequences were when they leave from the house under the tree, and they're parting ways, and then the whole sequence where they reach the ruins and they're like holding, they're at night resting. That, and even when a sequence where he's running away from the train station on that path, forested path, so that is Day for Night as well. So those kind of sequences, we found that like it was impossible to light up if we didn't use this technique. It's not about the money also, even if you get unlimited resources, you get unlimited time, you'll never be able to create this kind of imagery if you don't use this technique. I feel like what also happened is that the VFX team really supported us.
So did you use particular filter also,
No.
or any kind of exposure in terms of avoiding sky or something like that?
So what we did was, when we were shooting, because of the test that we had done, we realized that actually if we use a filter on the camera, it's actually counterproductive. Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to retain some skin tone as well. When we were adding different kinds of filters, what was happening is it was evenly turning the image to blue or a certain kind of hue, which was then very difficult to get the natural, like, colors of clothes and skin tone out. And I felt like it was looking more artificial. So we said that okay, let's shoot it clean, and let's shoot it in a way that it will be where we can manipulate later in post. So we did create a lot of mats of the sky, of the ground, which the VFX team provided, and in DI we could control them separately. So the whole process of actually taking these shots and marrying all these layers was very time consuming, but I feel like the final result has been very convincing. Yeah.
So since there was no electricity during that period, so kerosene oil lamps were often the only source of artificial light in the night. So did you try to maintain the realistic source lighting throughout these scenes, or did you also use the lamps mainly as a practicals while adding hidden artificial lights? For example, in the night scenes where Vedant character tells his sister that he is in love with the Sharvadi. So how did you approach the lighting while maintaining the period authenticity also?
So we did study, the time records of, the records around that time, whether to see whether there was actually electricity around those parts. So we took the assumption, because everything was jumbled, so some sources say that there was no electricity, some sources say that yes, there was electricity. So we took the assumption that because these people are probably rich, they probably have electricity. And we said that okay, because electricity is also expensive, then the number of practicals in the room of electric origin would be like very, very limited, but then there would be more oil lamps mixed with other, like kerosene lamps in frame, stuff like that. So the choice of practicals became very important. So the production design team, they actually provided us with a lot of different kinds of practicals as well, which we rigged with bulbs for kerosene lamps. So those things also helped create a certain sense of authenticity, because even if it's in the distance, if it's a kerosene lamp, but it just got a tiny glow to it, that's great. What also happened was, when we were selecting practicals, the amount of practicals in a room also made a difference, because if you have 3 practicals, it actually, then you need a certain kind of ambience. So we had to backtrack to what we wanted the image to look like, and then place our practicals accordingly. So that also helped. Did I miss something? I think second part of the question. I think.
So
maybe.
second part is that Vedang telling his sister that when they are sitting together and he says, "I'm in love with that."
Yeah. So also to also say that yes, placing practicals is important, but I feel like depending on the kind of film that you're making, you also need to simulate them. So in certain kinds of films, you feel it works better without simulating the practicals because of the natural fall off of the light and the natural way the light of the real practical interacts with the skin adds authenticity to the scene or realism. But here we were not going for realism entirely. I was wanting to create a much softer image, which does follow the laws of physics and does look real, but it also has a little bit of a romantic feel to it. Like it doesn't need to like stick to like fully reality, because even when he's say sitting in his room and reading poetry to his brother or talking to his sister in one corner of the house, though if I would have used a only point source of an oil lamp, the shadows would be very sharp and hard, which is something that I didn't want. So I wanted to have a much softer image, like with a softer contrast, which actually doesn't, it doesn't follow the realism of that space, but yeah, it works for the story.
So the train engine sequence featuring Vedang are visually striking. Inside the engine compartment, particularly, you can see moving patches of daylight during the day and the movement of the moonlight during the night. So, where these scenes were shot inside a real train engine, or was the engine compartment built on a set? How did you create that moving daylight and moonlight effect to achieve such a realistic look?
So firstly, yes, the train engine was real. It's an authentic steam engine from pre-independence era, which the producer and the director really fought. I mean, and they really got all of these. I mean, the train engine to a shooting location, which was like from Haryana to Punjab. That itself was a mammoth task. I feel like what happens is, yes, even if you build a set and if the set is there and you do chroma work and stuff, it's all great, but the actors need to interact with these things. And the moment you give a real thing to an actor, the kind of emotion, the kind of reaction of the actor to it comes out more authentically, I feel. Coming back to the play of light and shadow, we chose a portion of the track that all had these very tall trees through which like you would have these dapples of light coming through, rather than having like a very like an open kind of a patch where you would have a like like direct light coming throughout from start to end. I feel like this play of light and shadow creates this illusion of movement. It creates a lot more drama. So we focused on using only that part of the track. That I think also helped to accentuate the scene.
Sure. There's a large Haveli where Shardi's character goes after her marriage. So we see the same location at two different points in time. First, when Vedang comes to meet her, but leaves without seeing her. And later, when Diljit Dosanjh characters arrive in search of Jia, since the story spans different periods, what discussion did you have with the production designer to visually convey the passage of time through the look of the Haveli? And did the cinematography and lighting also change to support that transition?
So this Haveli that we see in the film, we actually visited 3 times in the film. One is when it's at its best, like because the people that live here are probably from a lot of wealth and they're really well-to-do. They probably have a lot of gold, farmland, all of that. Then the second time when we visit this place is just after partition. Maybe a few years have gone. They've had to probably sell a few of their things. They're not going through a very good phase in life. Maybe their servants have left, because they've not been able to pay them. Maybe and the third time when we do visit is with Diljit much later, like maybe in present time. At that time, the Haveli is almost in ruin because as time has gone past, this family has gone through a lot of bad phases. They've already given probably the outside area to like people who want to set up shop and all that, and inside the maintenance is not good. So now, yes, when I explain it this way, it's very easy to understand. But how do we now visually show it? So you can do it through production design and lighting. And I feel like what has happened here is because Suman is a person who's really talented, right? Suman, the production designer. And this is my third film with him. I've also done Chamkila with him and Dhadak too. And I feel like his ideas are fantastic. So emotionally, how do you tell the audience a certain story which you can't say in words is fantastic. Like the way he codifies it into the scene, and the kind of discussions I have with him, I'll be like, okay, what are you planning to do here? and then I'll be okay. If you're doing this, can I do this? And then the synergy of production design and lighting and camera teams and all coming together, I think gives us a result, which is puts you in the spot like emotionally, which I think is very difficult to do otherwise. So for this, we said that okay, let's start with the scene where she's running up the stairs. This is the best this place has ever been. So we created this kind of a very clean kind of an atmosphere with wallpaper, with like lots of props around, brighter colors, happier space. We wanted to have like say a lot of sunlight coming in. Here we did have to actually use a lot of artificial lighting because obviously
It was a set.
it is not a set. It's a real location.
Okay.
And within the real location, we had to spruce it up. This is an actual Haveli in Malerkotla. The Nawab of Malerkotla used to stay here. So this Haveli is also defunct right now, and no one goes there. But we had to like strengthen it. Choose portions of the place that was structurally sound, and we worked in those portions. So he converted this whole space to look like as authentically fresh and real as possible. And the second time when we see, it's like I feel like suddenly when he now comes and she's not in his life anymore, and he's trying to find what has happened to these women, all that emotionally the character is going through a lot. So we definitely wanted to create a sense of coldness into this environment. A lot of no sunlight should enter this space, and also the kind of the contrast that we wanted to create is like a slightly softer contrast. So I feel like that also helps him put into that spot. And the third time when Diljit comes there, I wanted to emphasize the decay of the space. So which is why we did use sunlight there, but the way sunlight hits the ground and comes up is and lights their face is very interesting, because that also creates a lot more shadow and contrast in frame. So the way we see the same space 3 times, apart from production design, it also has to change through lighting and the way we approach it. And if we keep a uniform lighting through all the 3 kind of time periods, emotionally we have not changed. So how will the audience feel different emotionally?
So anything else you would like to tell which I may not have asked? So
I'll have to really think.
not a problem. So,
Yeah.
so thank you so much for your time, and we'll get back.